This is the Oura ring, and it's one of the most advanced pieces of health tracking equipment that you can get on the market at the moment. Now, apparently, Oura are too big time and we're too small time for them to send us a free review unit. I'm not bitter, you're bitter. So I've borrowed this from a friend, George. Thank you for lending me this so I can do this review. Now, I've been using this for the last few months, and actually I've been able to wear it while at work. Normally in a hospital, if you're in a clinical role, you have to be bare below the elbow, but wedding rings are allowed. So I've been able to wear this and track how things have been going while at work, and I've even performed CPR while wearing the ring. Who'd have thought that your heart rate would actually go up when you're performing CPR in a high intensity situation? So actually, on that note, I'm going to cover some of the more philosophical aspects of whether you should or shouldn't buy a health tracking device in general. So stick until the end of the video to see whether this is something that will actually move you towards your goals or not of becoming healthier and more productive. But first, to help you make a decision, this is the hardware of the device. So it comes as a ring like this. It's got 3 nodes on the bottom. That allows you to track a number of health variables, including heart rate variability, and temperature, which I'm going to cover in a second. It charges on this wireless charging device, which then plugs into the mains, and charges in about an hour and a half, synchronizing with your phone that tells you the percentage of how charged that it is. And when it is charged, the battery lasts about 5 days, or you can put it onto airplane mode where it'll last slightly longer. In terms of style, it looks like this, kind of goth chic. It's a bit chunky, so you do notice it when you're wearing it, but it's not super intrusive or annoying, and you can get it in 3 different colours, like this, or copper, or silver. And there's 2 designs, either the one with a wisp like this, or a kind of flattened top, and there's also a really cute one that has a little gem in the top for an extra €1,000. So overall, pretty good compared to having to wear something on your wrist. It's meant to be made of titanium, so theoretically, very strong, meant to be able to wear it in the gym. I personally don't wear it in the gym. I just think if you're doing heavy barbell training and you've got something that could potentially crack that costs hundreds of pounds on your finger, then the risk is on you. But it's probably fine if you're doing Zumba or something. As you can see, there's no cracks or scratches that I've accumulated from using it for the last few months, but I've not really been doing extreme things with it on. So that's it for the hardware of the Oura ring. Onto the software. It tracks your heart rate and it gives you a long-term view of what that's like. And it also tracks heart rate variability, which is really a proxy measure for the amount of vagal tone that you have, so how well recovered you are and how well you're able to elicit the rest and digest relaxation response. It only tracks heart rate variability when you're sleeping, because they believe that's a more relevant indicator of your recovery status than heart rate variability when you are awake. It also gives you a great measure for sleep quality, using temperature and heart rate variability as a way to determine what stage of the sleep cycle that you're in. And I've actually found this to be immensely accurate compared to other types of tracking devices that I've used in the past. If I've been on a night shift and I might just be catching 6-7 minutes of sleep at a time in breaks, it still is able to tell when that's the case, very accurately with no false positives. Whereas people I know that use other tracking devices like Whoop bands or Fitbits can often give false positives if you're just sat down for a while and it'll think that you've fallen asleep at 3 in the afternoon. It does track activity and steps, but there's always going to be a discrepancy between which device that you use to track your steps. If you have your phone in your pocket, it might pick up a different number, but they're going to be roughly correlated and it'll give you a good pattern for whether you are at your baseline or not. The kind of people that use Fitbits often accumulate loads of steps just sat in their room as well. Very strange. So one other thing that it does, apart from temperature, which it uses to triangulate your recovery, is to measure your heart rate variability while you're doing a meditation. Now, remember, this doesn't track your 24-hour heart rate variability, it's only during either sleep or meditation. But what it can do is give you a good measure for the quality of your meditation practice and how it relates to other days. These are called moments in Oura. So quite similar to the Muse headset. Obviously the data it gives you is not going to be as granular as when you've got a EEG headband like the Muse headset. The other great thing about the software is that it integrates with Apple Health. So all of your sleep data, all of your heart rate data and your steps synchronize with Apple Health dashboard so you have it all in one place. There is also a feature called tags, where you can say I did this, this and this today and see how it correlates with your recovery status. So you can say trained, walked a lot, had work, night shift, whatever. Unfortunately, you can't choose what the tags are, they are preset. So for example, if you want to see whether ZMA has an effect on your sleep, that is hinging on whether the Oura software has that as an option. So what you can do is use proxies. So I know some people, if they're experimenting with something like NoFap and there isn't an entry for masturbation, then they just choose like skiing, which is a bit weird and it kind of jimmies the numbers and then you end up with this kind of code language for your Oura tags. But it's not as smooth an experience as if you could create your own correlations and draw your own trends, which is really half the reason why you'd want to use something like this in the first place. Saying that, the trends function within the Oura app is great within the limits of what it offers you, and it gives you some nice looking graphs. So my conclusion about the Oura Ring is that it's a really impressive piece of equipment, and it doesn't leave that much more on the table in terms of what I would want it to do potentially. It's self-contained, it has a contactless charger, it's simple to use, it synchronizes with no problems with the app, integrates with Apple Health. It's all really good on paper. The fact that it doesn't have a screen I think is a huge advantage. I don't want another thing to have to manage, another source of distraction like an Apple Watch or Fitbit or something. I want fewer distractions in my life, not more complications. From a software perspective, I think it does great for a first generation device like this. I would like to see more on the back end, to be able to take the data, export it, play around with it, run it through some analytics. I think there's a lot more stuff that you can get out of doing that. But unfortunately, when I've tried to run it through various third-party softwares, the API just doesn't work, doesn't integrate properly. And really the point of something like this is to be able to run self-experiments and to infer stuff from the data itself. Now, I'm going to get philosophical with you as to whether you should buy this or any other tracking device. Yes, the unit itself is fantastic and I really can't fault it that much. I think it's worth the money if it's what you're looking for. But why are you tracking in the first place? What are you hoping to do with the data despite discovering some weird trick? We're at the point in medical science where we know what improves your life. We know that lifting 3 to 4 times a week, getting 8 hours of sleep every night, having some time to rest, meditating, going outside, we know that all these things, the obvious stuff, improves our health outcomes, and makes us happier and more productive. So we don't need a device to tell us that. In my opinion, it's another thing that takes up your mental bandwidth. It's another thing to manage and analyze. And really what's better is that you develop your own intuitive sense of, am I stressed? Did I sleep well? You usually know this subjectively. I would rather also have that indicator here rather than here. Personally, the same way that I would approach trading is I want to have as few indicators as possible. I want a red light and a green light. I don't want loads of conflicting indicators that make me have to then sit and process through all the data to try and tease out what's useful and what's not. I've seen the evolution of tracking devices go a certain way, which is rather than simplifying and giving you a nice clear indicator, they're trying to track more and more variables because more is better somehow. Even ones that check your salivary cortisol at various times of the day. You've got to ask yourself, what's the point in measuring your cortisol? If you know that you're stressed, you need to be able to develop that interoceptive sense of, yes, I think I need to take a rest now, rather than relying on your cortisol, which is influenced by more factors than simply stress. And if you're going to track, you can use the simpler indicators. Being more stressed, having higher cortisol, is going to raise your heart rate, so just measure heart rate. This kind of comes into the move towards people trying to optimize their hormones all the time. But really, do you want higher testosterone and higher GH? Or do you want more muscle and less fat? We're not really interested in jimmying the numbers, we're interested in the ultimate result. So I think we should just reset our focus towards that, and you'll get a lot more benefits without raising your cortisol by worrying about your cortisol. As you know, this is part of optimizing your output so that you can build the life that you want. And it's one of the 5 key factors in building an online income. For that reason, we set aside a limited number of slots each week to have a chat with anyone who's looking to build their income online. So if you're interested in getting one of those, they fill up quite quickly, but the link is in the description below. Alright, speak to you soon.